Welcome to Spotlight on Lakewood. I'm Mayor Adam Paul, and today we're going to do a special edition and check in with our City Manager Kathy Hodgson. I've been your mayor for about 6 months now and just want to give you an overview of what we've been doing and what the future holds. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. This is a great time to have a good conversation about what's happening at Lakewood, so let's start. It's your first year as mayor, so what's been real important topics for you?
So being a new mayor, we have quite a few new council members on board as well. So we've really focused on trying to work together, trying to look at processes that have been in place in the city for some time and figuring out maybe what we can do better and how we can effectively work to represent the citizens in a real robust and transparent way.
Great. So far, midway through 2016, what's been the good news and what's been some of the important highlights of the year so far?
So we're very fortunate in the city of Lakewood, and we are a finalist once again for the All-America City Award. So that's really cool, and a few different things are a part of that. We also received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to do an arts walk, a loop, which we applied for and actually received full funding, so it's a very prestigious award. We were named top 100 places to live by livability.com. In fact, I think we might have been top 30 places.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so. I think, in fact, we took number 26 this year.
Number 26. So Lakewood is a great community, and we've also looked at maintaining and making sure that we have high level of public safety. So we're adding some police agents to the streets.
Right.
And of course, one of our most important assets is our children, and making sure that we're supporting our schools, and we have great schools in the city of Lakewood.
So what are your priorities for the coming year?
So I want to see council continuing to work together to bring new ideas to the floor, to really engage in a meaningful manner with the citizens. So I'm anxious for us to look at better ways to communicate and get citizen input and feedback, because it's really important. And a lot of times we don't hear back from citizens, right? Yeah. So there's kind of this silent majority, I think is something that you would say, that we don't hear from. Yeah. And how can we better engage those folks and listen to their concerns? We have some infrastructure projects that are important to council, the Sheridan Corridor, and making that more robust in a business sense, in a mobility sense. So we're looking at adding some sidewalks. There were 2 initiatives started by my predecessor. I'm really excited to continue working on those, Lakewood Linked and the Lakewood Faith Coalition. And these 2 initiatives really focus on bringing change in a meaningful manner to the city of Lakewood.
Yeah, Mayor Paul, I know you're out in the community a lot, and I'm curious, what kind of feedback are you hearing from the citizens? People
love Lakewood, so that's fantastic. And people move here for a reason, and one of those reasons is we kind of offer a little bit of everything, right? We have a transit line. You could live in Belmar and have more of an urban setting, and you could go 3 blocks away and have horse property. So there's a real nice mix. And so people love Lakewood, they like it, but they also have some concerns about growth and change. Change is quite challenging, and metro area is really booming, and with that comes growing pains. Yeah.
So what will be your approach to deal with some of the concerns that the citizens have?
So we've looked at plans for the future and trying to allow for growth in appropriate places. The light rail line is one of those areas where you're probably going to see a little bit more high density. But with that density, we want to make sure that those existing neighbors aren't negatively impacted. And that's a challenge because there is change. So how do we really find that balance? And I think finding that balance is through information, communication. We also have to make sure our infrastructure is keeping up with the demands to ensure that mobility is a priority.
Yeah, I agree. I see that as a real theme as well, just trying to find new ways to reach out and to engage the citizens. Communication is really important.
Communication is really important, and I would just touch on one thing as we do see the growth in our community, and we're a landlocked, pretty much infill community. Most of the greenfield is gone. There's a housing crisis in all of the state of Colorado, and the city of Lakewood's really been out in front trying to say, hey, we need to make sure we have a stock of housing that reflects the needs of our community. Single family homes, apartments, condominiums, townhomes, patio homes. We're not seeing all of those. So if you think of a tripod, we kind of have two main legs, which would be single family homes and apartments. We don't have that condominium. That condominium is very important to folks that may want to downsize,
Right.
or young folks that may want to start their life and really set roots in our community. So we would really like to encourage that and see more of that built in our community.
So do you consider that a priority for the coming years?
I do. I do.
So how about the city's finances? How are those going, and how would you characterize the finances of the city?
Well, I'm going to give you and your staff a plug. You guys have done a wonderful job of maintaining the citizens' tax dollars. And prior to being mayor, I served for 8 years through the greatest downturn that a few generations may have seen. And we have been able to be very frugal, very cautious, and make sure that the priorities are there. Police, we didn't cut back on our police. We didn't cut back on infrastructure. We really tried to maintain the quality of life, level of services that the citizens expect. So we are in a position where we've benefited from smart management, and I'm very, very proud of that, and we can go champion that. But we also have some needs as we look towards the future. We are an aging community as far as infrastructure does, go, and while we may have 35 to 40 million in reserves, that could be spent really quick on one project. So I think it's time that we maybe re-examine and look at what 10, 15, 20 years looks like down the road, and make sure that we have the money and the processes in place to maintain the needs that are going to be there.
Right. Thank you. And I would like to say I think the employees did a wonderful job, all of them. We have almost 900 full-time employees, and to a person, people tried very hard to stretch that dollar and to make sure we were being really careful with the public's dollar. So we were able to weather through at tough financial times from the country's perspective without having layoffs and furloughs, et cetera. So from the employee perspective, we're really proud of that.
Yeah, and I would say, in my tenure at the City of Lakewood, you really get a sense that the employees, how much they care. Whether they live in Lakewood or not, they work at Lakewood and they love Lakewood, and they're really here to care. And so I'm always very impressed with you and your staff, and thank you for a job well done.
Okay, so along the lines of city finances, let's talk a little bit about the economic vitality of our community and of the city. We're seeing a lot of change and a lot of new exciting things. Will you highlight some of those?
Yeah, I'd love to. And this is an exciting part because we have companies that are growing, companies that are starting, companies that are relocating, and we have a kind of a mix of big, medium, and small. First Bank is almost done with their brand new headquarters on West Colfax. Trumo BCT did a grand opening of their international headquarters near the Oak Street station. So those are two primary job employers who are expanding and really making sure that Lakewood is home for their future. And that West Alameda corridor near St. Anthony is starting to see some new restaurants. And I think that's a little bit to do with what's going on at St. Anthony's and their expansion. So they're growing as well. So we have pockets of, I guess, prosperity, I would say, all throughout, new brew pubs. There's a lot of excitement on West Colfax. Jewel and Wadsworth for years, folks have been concerned about that particular corner where there's now a new coffee vendor that took over a gas station that was vacant for probably a decade. So that's really important, and that adds to the quality of life.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Lakewood has a lot going on. So, Mayor Paul, what is your vision for the coming year and for the future of the city?
Well, the table's been set by previous leaders in our community. And every leader's had kind of a different time and a different phase. And one of the former mayors said something important. He said, in leadership, you're planting, you're tending, you're harvesting. And I think the city of Lakewood has really harvested a lot over the last decade. And now we're maybe back in the planting phase and looking at what the next decade or two looks like. And so my vision is to really look at, where we are now, where we want to be in 20 years, and taking into account a lot of these changes that don't always sit well with folks or can feel uncomfortable, but they're happening and they're going to continue to happen. We need to be smart and we need to work together to make sure that, down the road we can continue to have wonderful harvests and ensure that Lakewood is the great community it is today. And I think it has been for some time since 1969. We've always been fortunate to be a community that people look to and really look at for best practices.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we're at the beginning of your term as mayor, and I'm curious, how do you want to leave your mark, or what do you see from this point in time? What do you see as your legacy when you're walking away from the position?
That's a really good question, and you're not the first one to ask me that, and you might be interested that at this point I don't have one. But what I do know is that I want to make sure that we're working together with the community and building a vision together. And I think that's what's the most important, that we work together and we go forward. I might have a different answer in 3 years, but right now it's just making sure that Lakewood is a better place.
I love that. I'll ask you that again next year, and we'll see if your answer changes. Okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So you have a new initiative underway this year, and can you talk about that?
So I'm doing a year of health, and we're looking at different aspects of community health, and it really ties into some of the stuff that we talked about earlier: healthy communication, healthy living, healthy choices, healthy dialogue. Sometimes we're dealing with challenging issues, and how can we have a discussion that's healthy but yet hear everybody's points of view? So I've initiated walk and talks with the community, getting out to enjoy our parks, because we have wonderful parks. We did our first bike ride a couple weeks ago.
How'd that go?
It was really cool. We had almost 50 riders that came out and joined. And for me personally, it's a nice venture as well, because I'm bringing the community on a physical journey, to become more physically fit. And that's important for our kids. And so we're just trying to highlight different ways that people of all ages can get out and be healthy in all different aspects of their life.
So what's your next physical challenge? Marathon?
Endurance race, 50-miler.
Wow. Wow.
We do have great opportunities. In fact, the Colfax Marathon did just pass. And I think in the past we used to actually run a relay. This year I didn't quite run.
Didn't quite?
Didn't quite, but I think our next outing might be a hike on Green Mountain.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Good. Make sure to see the pretty wildflowers up there. It's gorgeous.
It is.
Gorgeous views. How nice to visit with you. And how would you summarize the state of the city?
We live in a safe and prosperous community that has a very bright future. We have some challenges, but we have smart folks, both elected and wonderful staff, that can work together with our fantastic citizens to address those needs and concerns. We're just going to keep the city of Lakewood moving forward.
That's great. Adam, on behalf of all of the citizens, I just want to thank you for your work.
Well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate this opportunity, because folks don't always get to see what you do, and we really appreciate what you and your staff do. So thank you for taking this time to interview me.
Great, it's a lot of fun. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Spotlight on Lakewood. I look forward to working together with you to keep Lakewood moving forward.